We today have an old friend, good friend of mine. We've done a few interesting investments together. And I was surprised actually to see you today at the studio. So that is quite a pleasant surprise. So welcome to the show, Dr. Mohamad Hamade.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise, it's a pleasure being with you on the show.
Heard the good news, baby?
Yes, I followed. My baby came after yours by a month.
Okay, fantastic. And what's the name there?
Leonard.
Beautiful. How did you pick it up?
You should ask my wife.
Okay, good, fantastic. So, Doctor, we've had quite interesting investments together, and that was more than a decade ago.
More than a decade, around 12 years ago.
12 years ago, fantastic. And then you evolved from there.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Amanat, and then you've developed your own private equity shop. I understand that you have expanded your investment thesis from healthcare into other sectors. So a bit of a background, man.
Sure. Well, every time I thought I reached the pinnacle, I discovered that it's still long way out.
Okay.
Back in the days when I was a medical doctor and had joined Harvard Medical School to become a surgeon, to train in ENT, I discovered that the world revolves around business, and I knew nothing about business. That was just before we had met. So I was curious to get to learn the business world. I pursued an MBA from Cornell, and that drove me into the business side of healthcare at the time, and that's when we met. Started doing investments in healthcare focused on sectors such as long-term care, rehab, home care, as you know well, and other subsectors. And then the journey continued into a company called Amanat, which is a publicly traded company in Dubai Stock Exchange that focuses on education and healthcare. Joined the company, led it for 6 years. As a chief executive, managed to grow the company by 28-fold in terms of profitability, grew the platform to become $1 billion platform, invested in many hospitals and universities and schools in the Gulf region. And then I stepped down a year and a half ago and founded Lumio Capital. The direction for Lumio is, as you said, to capitalize on the learnings of the past, but also expand into the opportunities of the future. Specifically, looking into the intersection of technology with core sectors such as healthcare and education. I feel that these are two sectors of a high social impact, and I'm personally very driven by any investment that has a purpose and that has a wide social impact while generating value to our shareholders. And that drove my decision to join Lumio.
It's interesting that you are actually a medical doctor that has jumped into the shoes of a money manager. And how did that happen? Why did you actually take that shift?
I've always wanted to be on the principal side. Being on the fund management side adds a huge responsibility on the shoulders of a manager. Being intimately involved in the healthcare sector, being a physician, being able to speak the language of physicians, but more importantly, being able to understand the root challenges of the sector and also understand the impact of how technology will transform and disrupt our sector, allowed me to consider being a fund manager, to take the lead in investing in this sector, being able to navigate its challenges, unlock opportunities, and create value. And I've learned that what really made a change in that journey was really three things: the people behind the businesses, so the managers at the ground, operational managers, the strategy that you devise and you are able to pursue, and then the governance that you instill in organizations. I learned that as we go, to be honest with you. I didn't know it when we had met 12 years ago. But we learned on the job and continue to have an open mindset around a continued learning journey, learning from our mistakes and trying to do better the next time. And I feel that now we continue to learn, but we're in a very good place to lead in the next phase of our investments.
You know, I'm very passionate about how education could ready future generations for different options. Yeah. And I do have a lot of emphasis on the ability to be able to self-feed, basically be entrepreneurial and within entrepreneurial teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to take you a bit back into the years of when you studied. I understand that you've had your college days at the American University in Beirut. I understand that. Where
This
you
is where I
studied
got
MD?
my MD, yes.
Okay. And going through that educational experience,
Mm-hmm.
how did that help you basically be what you are today? Or how did it not help you in case it did not?
So this is an excellent question. I think the AUB experience specifically is not only an educational academic experience, it's a learning journey across all levels of development and evolution. So irrespective of the excellent academic training that I got there, what AUB has left me with is the evolution as a person, as a leader. AUB is a melting pot in the center of Beirut that includes all sorts of social norms and principles and values and things that you can learn from and grow. It also is a ground to allow your personality to evolve. As I was a leader in the student council, I ran for elections, I tried to change the journey of the student life at AUB beyond the academics. So I feel that's what AUB had taught me.
Did you find that in you before college, or was college a big influencer?
The college was a big influencer. I've always, in school, I went to Shweifat prior to that, which again was an excellent experience. I spent 15 years there. And I've always been a student who wanted to change things and drive change and being on the varsity team of basketball and football. And I've had that aspect in me at a personal level. But what allowed it to crystallize and grow and reach a point where you are able to make an impact was definitely the college days.
Okay.
Because I was, more mature, continued to mature during the college days. And the university had the right ingredients to allow you to flourish and explore. It wasn't a strict, closed down, conservative experience. It's exactly the opposite.
So going through what you went through, let's say in the last 10, 12 years, how could an education experience have prepared you better? So you've talked about all the good things that you've got. What could have there been that would have prepared you better for what you have went through? I'm sure you had 10 probably very stressful years.
Yes.
So how could have they been less stressful?
Not only less stressful, it could have been more impactful by two areas. On the academic side, I think courses, so I studied biology and medicine in AUB. And you would assume that many of these courses could be dull in nature. And we studied them in textbooks, like take cell biology class. It's a fascinating topic, but when you read it in a textbook, it's one of the most boring topics you can have. The future, if you integrate augmented reality into it, or immersive learning into that same course, and I've seen demos of that in the United States a year ago. Instead of studying a textbook, walking inside a cell and feeling that you are part of the body in an augmented reality fashion, in an immersive learning experience, allowing you to understand and learn what's oncology and what's cancer by seeing cells around you dividing, and you're part of the gamification of trying to cure it, I feel would make education a lot more fun, a lot more sticky, and you would be able to learn and retain more of that learning than the dull nature of a textbook. This is on the academic side. If I may, just on the personal side, on the soft side, the curriculum of yesterday is focused on degrees, on issuing a degree that says you are, a bachelor in business administration or a bachelor in biology, which is well and good. However, the leaders of tomorrow are not necessarily successful because you have a bachelor degree or a medical doctorate. You're successful because of the skill set that you as a person possess, which includes soft skills, which includes things that we don't learn in classrooms, such as critical thinking, empathy, emotional intelligence, innovation, agility. These skills, today as an entrepreneur, I would ask you, when you select leaders in your organization, I believe you would look at those besides their academic accomplishment and their professional experience. You also want a leader who is able to manage a COVID situation that came out of nowhere and suddenly business is shutting down. You don't manage it by your academic skills. You manage it by your open-mindedness, your agility, how nimble you are, how open-minded, so on and so forth. You manage economic shocks by your ability to deal with, on the personal side, on the personal relationships, on building teams, so on and so forth. So these are the two changes that I would have liked to see, and that I would like to see in the future academic institutions.
I definitely, as you stated, I'm pro actually exposing students way earlier in their education experience, and that they are able to team up, find solutions to problems, and with that face real life situations way earlier in life, so that the hope is by the time they graduate from school or university, they are way readier for different scenarios, different life scenarios that they would go for, or different career scenarios that they go for. For example, you might see yourself today as the exception, actually, of an MD going business. Yeah. How many do you know that do that? I would guess quite few. Yeah. Not many. But then, would it be possible to make that ability an integrated ability in your education experience, so that it does not necessarily need to be the exception, and you are ready for whatever option you'd go for, whether you'd like to stay as an MD or you'd like to go for business, having the knowledge in healthcare industry and so on and so forth. And it wouldn't necessarily be that super challenging hurdle for you to go through in case you wanted. And actually, I wanted to ask you about that. You went through the education experience. In healthcare, you went through the growth scenario of a healthcare setup. You're now going into actually pure management, money management function with a private equity shop that eyes healthcare and so forth. What are the key changes that you think would go through in the healthcare education side of the equation, and then the industry side of the equation? Let's start with education. How do you see it changing when it comes to getting educated in the healthcare industry?
I think we cannot ignore the fact that AI is being integrated into the various curricula across different functions, and one of them is healthcare, no question. And one thing I can foresee is I don't think you will need 7 years to become a general practitioner in the future. You don't necessarily require that, because you actually do spend so many years learning a lot of basic sciences and trying to memorize courses that today, in a click of a button, you have the access to this information. But rather, going into experiential learning and understanding the building blocks of what should a general practitioner possess in terms of knowledge can be done in a more efficient way. So in terms of length of the academic journey, I feel it will become shorter with time. I also feel that the experiential part of it will become the majority rather than the minority. So just to give a sense to your listeners, the American academic system in medicine is 3 or 4 years of pre-med and then 4 years of medicine. By then you are only a doctor. Then you go through your specialization and then the subspecialization. So my colleagues, I've been in business for a decade and a half. My colleagues just finished and became subspecialized physicians, a couple of years ago, just to give you a sense. I think this will become shorter. The experiential part of it.
And can it start earlier?
And I think it could definitely start earlier, because if you look at the teenagers of today, the open-mindedness, their access to data, and their ability to process information is nothing to be compared to our days, So we cannot ignore this fact and not think of how should this impact our academic journey. More interestingly as well is we think of degrees. We think of, I need to obtain this degree to become a doctor and this degree to become a nurse and so on and so forth. Whereas in the future, you should think of what are the skills that I need within a certain hospital? What's the future role of the physician in that hospital, and work backwards? What's the future jobs that are required to run a hospital operation? And then work backwards towards its impact, and not on education, and not the other way around. So this is on the academic impact, on the academic side of healthcare. On the operational and the industry side, it's a complete transformation. Today, the need for a brick and mortar, a huge physical space for hospital operation is becoming less and less needed in many developed countries. Today, what really matters is access to healthcare, making sure that the quality of the healthcare being provided is sustained, is maintained, and then from a cost perspective, it's efficient. And that can be provided by the technology to a large extent. If you think of the number of surgeries that used to be done in an inpatient setting versus today outpatient setting, it's just completely flipped the pyramid. 90% of it was inpatient. Today, 75% of it is outpatient. You rarely have to sleep at the hospital unless it's a complex surgery. In the future, and if we start to move more towards anti-aging and preventive healthcare rather than curative healthcare, people are going to be living longer, be getting sick less, and as such, requiring different methods of the healthcare ecosystem, and the last resort will be the hospital. Historically, the hospital is the first resort. You go to be treated, curative healthcare. In the future, this is the last resort. It's really how you take care of your body, how you sleep well, what wearables are tracking your performance, what sort of supplements you are taking to feel better and look better and live longer and avoid chronic disease.
When we used to function in the healthcare industry, and then I moved also into the education industry, something that really some realization that really saddened me, that hit me actually in both industries. Somehow realized that neither the education system nor the healthcare system were designed in the first place to cater for one's quality of life, more so than making sure that they are functional. As if we are a number in an Excel sheet or a piece of a big machine. And I truly think that we need to evolve in both industries, whereby quality of life becomes the question to be answered. And then what we try to train for, basically, so that what we hope to get out of that experience are individuals that know how to gauge their quality of life, enhance it for themselves and others. How do you see that in the healthcare industry today, and where do you think the future is? I mean, much to what you have just said, but then do you agree with me? And then if the answer is yes, what do we need to change?
The answer is not only yes, Doctor. The answer you've eloquently described the reason behind founding Lumio Capital from my personal perspective. I wanted to found Lumio in order to pursue purpose-driven investments that puts quality of life at the forefront of our focus. That's exactly why. So, to your point, we want to think of investing in technologies and in solutions that would prevent the person in the first place from becoming sick. So being able to look at, from a genetic perspective, what are you mostly predisposed for, and try to solve for that before it happens. Because what's the worst quality of life? It's chronic disease. It's being in a hospital in and out, right? It's suffering from a heart failure or a kidney failure and then going through dialysis and a very bad quality of life, to give one example. Whereas if you know early on that a person has a high likelihood of developing in the future diabetes or cardiovascular disease or cancer, and we are able to genetically treat that through gene therapy, then you're not only, I mean, just imagine the impact on quality of life. And this is only one example. Another example, if I take into consideration diagnostics. Today, the diagnostic world, from all types of diagnostics that we currently have, is expensive, it's invasive, it's painful to some extent. Whereas in the future, there are a lot of new technologies that are AI-enabled that are able to diagnose in a few seconds very chronic disease. You know, I would give an example of oculometry, which through the retina of the eye, you are able to look into a lens and in 40 seconds to tell you if you will develop cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer, or Parkinson. So imagine the impact on the quality of life of that person if at 45 years old was able to know that he or she has a high likelihood of having Alzheimer at 70 and then solving for it early on. Not only you will live longer, but you will live a better quality of life throughout.
You know, I read somewhere, and I'm not sure about how accurate is this, and this has driven me actually to creating a startup called Social Gym.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, if we educate the mass about good health and well-being practices, we could reduce their need for hospitalization for up to 60%.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just simply sharing science-based general information about health practices. How to eat, how to sport, how to sleep, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So my dilemma is, why isn't that the basis of any healthcare system that really wants the mass to stay healthy and would then reduce the need for a bigger and a more comprehensive healthcare system? It still mesmerizes me, but I might be wrong. Well, what do you think?
You're not wrong. You're absolutely right. And the concept of longevity today has become a center for most educated investors in this sector. As you correctly mentioned, sleep, nutrition, and exercise are the building blocks of longevity. And the main reason why people age and develop sickness is inflammation in the body. And these three things, sleep, nutrition, and exercise, decrease the level of stress and hence inflammation in the body and allow the body to avoid sickness to a very, very large extent. And the science of tomorrow has a lot of promising solutions for that. And it's for us as investors to be able to know which of these solutions have the right merit to succeed for tomorrow and back such innovations and invest in them from one angle. But more interestingly, from another angle, to have a holistic approach towards investing in the sector. Like, I didn't know you invested in social gyms, and I'm glad to hear that. It's important to approach it from a holistic strategy. Gym is part of it. But then alongside this, there's the nutrition, there's the wearables, there's the diagnostic aspect, and there's the whole longevity realm of potential solutions, products, services that can be invested in to approach the concept you are raising and in order to contribute to meaningfully solving it. So it's great to start somewhere And I would highly encourage that you continue to look down that sector, because this will impact the lives of our kids and our grandkids for sure.
Actually, on this point, I've just established what I call the living quality organization.
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is through science, be able to create what I refer to as the living quotient, very similar to intelligence quotient, but then somehow be able to gauge one's quality of life on daily basis. Because I think science has covered a good chunk of that.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow education didn't pick it up. And society didn't pick it up. And I wonder if we are able to make it really easier for the individuals to be able to gauge their quality of life. I would call it daily, but then probably more practically, weekly or monthly basis, and then enhance it for themselves, and with that be able to enhance it for others. And with that, I'm actually, in fact, creating a development company, a real estate development company called Living Q, that will try to extract from that and create communities that continuously educate themselves on how to continuously enhance their quality of life. And this, hopefully, what I refer to as a social experiment, the hope that what comes out of it, generations that know how to do it better than the generations before. But then that would only be super impactful if the healthcare industry joins hands with such, and with that we can actually do it in a better way. Putting all of this into the school system,
Mm-hmm.
the schooling system would then be able to enable us actually to instill it at a much earlier age. Because what I think education systems have done, and the healthcare industry didn't help, is that we are only focusing on productivity and less than. So somehow I always wonder why physics and math and chemistry is more important than health and well-being, or even border questions. Why is that more important than you being able to manage your wealth, for example? So I have some fundamental questions that I'm trying to answer. Going to wealth management. So why did you decide to establish Lumina? What's your current activities? What's your future plans?
So first of all, it's congratulations on the living Q and the concept of the living coefficient. It sounds fascinating. I would love to learn more about it. And what I can tell you is that peer pressure has been proven to inspire people and create higher productivity within a certain small group of people. So there's a diabetes, for example, wearable device, and they were able to see that the people going on the same exact regimen were able to improve their HbA1c markers significantly when their results were published within a peer group. So if we are within the same peer group or living in a certain community, and I see that Dr. Adil is improving in X, Y, and Z, it motivates people around to do better, and hence the end result of the whole community becomes enhanced overall. So it's a great concept. I would love to learn more about that. To answer your question around where do I plan to go with Lumio, I think this podcast is called DisruptEd, and I would like to play a role in all the disruptive technologies that have to do with education and healthcare. And I feel that specialization is very important to play a meaningful role, meaning we don't invest in technology everything. We invest in technology in sectors that we understand intimately well, where we are able to know the challenges and understand the potential of each of these solutions and then invest behind them. I believe that we live in Dubai, and this market, I've witnessed it for a decade and a half, growing significantly, and having all the right attributes to play a global role at many levels. And one of them is well-being and wellness, and another is education. And I feel that my goal would be to invest in technologies around the world where we are able to scale and grow such technologies and companies into the United Arab Emirates and create a hub in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi for the rest of the region, not only the Gulf, but the rest of the region. There is some innovation in our region, but I truly believe that our strategy would be to focus on emerging companies from the United States, from the UK, where cutting-edge technologies are being launched, and invest in those companies, and then work with their founders to bring them to set a footprint in Dubai and scale their operation. It's important to note, technology will never replace conventional healthcare or conventional education. You will always need the conventional setup, right? Which is the brick and mortar to some extent. Technology complements it, plays alongside it, makes it more productive and more efficient. And as such, our experience and track record in what the region needed, which was brick and mortar in the past, plays a big role in helping these technologies come into this market and establish and grow. So we will be playing a more strategic and an active role. We will not be just a financial sponsor investing passively, but rather actively being a strategic investor, investing growth venture capital into companies with a clear path towards commercialization and a clear path to profitability, and helping them grow into the Middle East. This is the thesis of the investment.
I'll throw an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I get some of these crazy ones every now and then.
Let's see.
But I think you are best fit for it. You know, in building citizens as a school, found that, most schools build for the lifestyle of the employee.
Mm.
Those are disciplined individuals that don't make mistakes. Yeah. I think since 40% or so of nursery-aged kids now will need to be self-feeding by the time they graduate from college, we need to also train for another lifestyle, which is the lifestyle of the entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think the future of education are a lot to do with educational experiences, whereby the education experience that you went through could guide you or help you better choose a certain path in life. I wonder if there is the education experience of the carer. Can there be a school that also trains for the education experience of a carer? A healthcare professional probably at the end, or individuals that are trained actually to care for others. Since, as you probably also know, that by 2080, 40% of the world population will be, 25% of the world population will be above 65 years old. So 1 out of 4 will be above 65, and many of which will require care. And with that, we know that elderly care, home nursing, rehab, all of these healthcare services will be highly needed. And if 1 out of 4 will need help, then you can imagine the size of that industry by then. And I wonder if we can prepare actually kids earlier on to assume such roles. And can we develop schools that can train for that earlier on? So we start, for example, in entrepreneurship, we start from age 3, whereby by the age 13, we try to involve them actually in actual venture building. I wonder if we can develop a schooling experience, education experience, that actually starts with them much earlier. For by the time they graduate out of school, they are half ready or maybe even fully ready to be able to take care of others. And probably shorten the lifespan of college studies way shorter than what you even thought it would be with the help of AI or virtual reality. Thoughts?
Definitely possible. And to add to your statistic of a fourth of the population being on the elderly side, another interesting one is that the world will need more teachers, tens of millions. Around the latest I read was around 44 million teachers are required. Same thing would be on the nursing side and on the doctor's side. There's a shortage globally for healthcare professionals, allied health professionals, besides the doctors, but allied health professionals, which includes nurses and technicians and carers, as you mentioned. So the statistic is exponential to what you just said. Now, how you integrate that into the curriculum in a school is key. And I think focusing on the skilling rather than the degree based, they don't need to graduate with any degree to learn how to care for an elderly. They need to build and build capabilities and skills that later on in life are transferable and can be used in such a thing. And this is definitely doable given how at a young age they are able to grasp such capabilities and learn this skill set. It's possible. What's also interesting...
So we have a joint project
would be... It sounds interesting. I want to think of how we can integrate it into your curriculum in the school.
No, we create a new school to do that.
A new school to do that.
Yeah, I think that's merited.
I can tell you, I've invested in a chain of schools that were focused on children with special needs. It's an area that's very dear to my heart. I'm very passionate about it.
We worked together on investigating one
investigating
setup.
back in the days.
Yeah, back in the days. You used to lead on that.
One of the last transactions I did in Amanat, though, was the one I'm sharing now with you. It is an existing platform.
Okay.
And the reason why I bring it up, it's because similar to what you saw about carers, we've also identified a need for children with
special
education needs.
Yes.
That was really sort of overseen to a large extent in our region.
Yes.
And again, we wanted to think of who are the carers or who are the trainers and the learners for this. And it was a very basic training program that allowed the founder to actually bring majority female Saudi ladies who were just passionate about wanting to give back to the society. They went through this short program, being skilled and trained, go through a certain very well-designed pathway of learning, and they became the teachers for these students. So maybe something similar we could think of.
Actually, this room that we are in would, within the next 2 years, become a diagnostics and an early intervention center, actually, for minor special education needs. Mm-hmm. The spectrum is really wide.
For sure.
But then what I think we could work on is basically developing a curriculum that can deliver on that. And the beautiful thing is that we here in the UAE, we have a lot of authorities that are very supportive of such innovative, actually, educational experiences. And I think that will help a lot of people, not only now, we are talking about 40, 50 years from now. And we can become the center of where that can happen, where if anywhere, I would guess that this country could actually welcome something like this.
Absolutely.
I'll be very excited about this.
Likewise.
Any final thoughts from you, Doctor?
Final thoughts?
Any words of wisdom?
Wisdom, I continue to learn. I cannot claim I can offer wisdom. What I can tell you is, when we talk about disruption and the role of technology, maybe it's important to always think of how to use it thoughtfully instead of force-fitting technology into the future. So even if we think of developing this, we will not be thinking of what technology should I bring? We should think of what is the real problem, go down back to the roots, back to the basics, and identify the challenge, understand it very well, and then come up with a solution that might eventually involve a certain aspect to it, to be technology or a hybrid model. And the last thing I would tell you is any change we aspire to make, especially in the education sector, will be slow. So we need to be patient. We need to be resilient.
Tell me about it.
to drive change in this sector, because there are so many barriers. I agree with you. Our authorities are very supportive, and we have all the right ground in the UAE to innovate and to create new concepts. But the industry itself has barriers inherent in it, and we just need to continue to be resilient, to navigate challenges and drive change.
Doctor, final statement from you. If people want to reach out to you, be interested in understand what you do, both personally and in Lumio, how could they reach to you?
Well, I'm very approachable. My LinkedIn profile is there, and it's open for public, and I welcome.
And that would be what, Dr. Mohamad Hamade?
It's Dr. Mohamad Hamade. This is the LinkedIn one.
Yeah.
My email address is hamade@lumiocapital.com.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
See you again soon.
Thank you.
In the new school,
Inshallah,
hopefully.
in the new school.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.